A boy stands on the Mongolian steppe. He is 9 years old. His father is dead, poisoned by a rival tribe at a feast he attended as a guest. And now the tribe that his father led, the tribe this boy was born into, the tribe that was supposed to be his inheritance, rides away. They leave the widow. They leave the children. They leave the boy named Temujin standing in the grass watching everything he was promised disappear over the horizon. Most people know who Temujin became. Few understand what that moment built. Genghis Khan is one of the most searched historical figures on the planet. He conquered more territory than any military leader in history. He built the largest bordering land empire the world has ever seen. He is remembered as a conqueror, a ruthless force of nature, a man who bent the world to his will through violence and fear. That reading is incomplete, because what Genghis Khan actually built was a system, a governance architecture, a set of operating principles so structurally complete that historians, organizational theorists, and system thinkers are still mapping its implications 8 centuries later. And every single element of that system traces back to a 9-year-old boy standing abandoned on the steppe. The Conquest is the evidence. This series is about the system behind the empire, the architecture of thought, governance, law, and leadership that made the conquest possible and held it together long after the battles ended. To understand this system, you have to start where Temujin started, with the wound. The tribe's abandonment taught a 9-year-old boy about how human systems actually work. Loyalty is conditional. The tribe chose its own survival over its obligations to his family. That is tribal logic operating exactly as designed. Loyalty flows to the structure, and when the structure that earned it disappears, the loyalty disappears with it. Temujin watched this happen in real time. He never forgot it. Blood determines everything. He was born into leadership. His father was a clan chief. None of that mattered when the power that backed it was gone. Hereditary status is a story people tell when it serves them. When it stops serving them, they stop telling it. Temujin learned this before he was 10. The system punishes weakness at the structural level. The tribe abandoned his family because the system had no mechanism for protecting them. There was no law. There was no code. There was only the logic of survival operating on people who had no alternative. Most people who survive a wound this deep spend the rest of their lives trying to recover what they lost. They seek the approval of the system that rejected them. They try to earn back what was taken. Temujin did something completely different. He spent the next 30 years building a different system. Every innovation of the Mongol Empire, and there were genuine innovations, can be read as a direct structural inversion of what failed him on that step. Blood determines nothing in his empire. Performance determines everything. Loyalty flows to the code. No man can be abandoned by a system that has no mechanism for abandonment because the system itself prohibits it. This is what it means to say the wound was the blueprint. He did not transcend his childhood. He metabolized it into architecture. This pattern is not unique to Genghis Khan. The deepest systems in human history, the ones that actually change the structure of the world rather than just the names of the people in charge, almost always originate in a personal encounter with systematic failure. The builder experienced the gap between how the system claimed to work and how it actually worked. That gap became the design problem. Life's work became the solution. The wound creates the map becomes the system outlasts the man. Temujin becomes Genghis Khan in 1206 at the Kurultai, the great assembly of Mongol tribes, where he is declared great Khan of all the Mongols. He is approximately 40 years old. He spent 30 years on the steppe being tested, betrayed, captured, enslaved, and forged. He arrives at that assembly as a man who has already built in his mind the system he intends to install. The first thing he does is reorganize the structure. He dissolves the tribal units. He takes the clans that have been the organizing logic of steppe life for centuries and breaks them apart. He rebuilds the entire social and military architecture from scratch around units of 10, 100, 1,000, and 10,000. He appoints leaders to every unit based on demonstrated ability. The son of a blacksmith can command 1,000 men. The man who shot the Khan's horse in battle and admitted it under questioning gets hired as a general because the honesty and the skill both register as data worth keeping. An aristocrat, unable to lead, gets demoted to the rank of common soldier. There is more than just a military reorganization. This is an ontological break with the existing world. He is installing a new operating system on a population that has never run anything but the old one. And he does it by making the logic undeniable. People who perform rise. The system is self-evident in a way that tribal politics never was. You can see it working. You can feel the fairness of it even if you are not the beneficiary. This is how you install a new system in a population that no one asked for. You make the logic of the new system more visible and more just than the logic of the old one. The wound that abandoned Temujin on the steppe failed to make him ruthless. Ruthlessness was already the steppe's operating system. He grew up inside it. What the wound made him was a systems thinker, a man who looked at how structures actually produce outcomes rather than how they claim to, a man who understood that loyalty, order, and power are design choices, and if they are design choices, they can be redesigned. Everything that made the Mongol Empire the largest and most far-reaching governance structure of the medieval world traces back to a 9-year-old boy deciding, consciously or otherwise, that the system that abandoned him stood as one choice among many rather than the only one possible, that it could be built differently. In the next episode, we look at the instrument he built to hold it all together, a law code so sophisticated that its core mechanism was the fact that nobody outside the inner circle could fully read it, the yasa, the system behind the system.